Many theological traditions categorize humanity's presence on Earth as a punitive exile, a direct consequence of a cosmic sin. This diagram outlines the mainstream logic. Disobedience leads to sin, resulting in punishment, which deposits humanity on Earth. Shia theology replaces this model with a different architecture, preordained vicegerency, leading to a specific error called Tark al-Awla, which initiates a planned earthly mission. The necessity of this model stems from the doctrine of isma, the requirement that prophets are protected from major sins and intentional rebellion. This creates a mechanical paradox. If isma is a requirement for prophethood, the system must account for Adam's disobedience in the garden without categorizing it as a sin. Resolving this paradox shifts the understanding of human existence. Earthly life becomes a deliberate, pre-planned deployment rather than a state of shameful exile. The chronological baseline for this mission is found in the second chapter of the Quran. Before Adam inhabited the garden, Allah announced the creation of a khilafah, a vicegerent or steward, specifically for the earth. The primordial earth was the designated theater for this role. It existed as a staging ground, waiting for its appointed steward to arrive. The angels questioned this decision, fearing an earthly being would spread corruption. Allah asserted a hidden divine logic in response, stating, "I know what you do not know." This logic was demonstrated through the teaching of the names. Shia traditions explain that Adam was taught the realities of the al-Awla, Muhammad and his family, equipping him with an intellectual capacity the angels lacked. Because the role of Khalifa was established before the garden trial, the earth stood as the intended terminal objective of the human mission from its inception. Shia sources distinguish this garden from the eternal paradise of the hereafter. Imam Jafar as-Sadiq noted that if it had been the eternal paradise, Iblis could not have entered to whisper deceptions, and Adam would have been unable to leave. Traditions describe it as a lower celestial testing ground, an environment where the sun and moon rose, marking the passage of time. The trial was defined by a single parameter, permission to utilize the entire environment, restricted only by the prohibition of a specific tree. Iblis used false oaths to deceive them, framing the forbidden option as a means to achieve a superior, lasting state of being. Eating from the tree resulted in the symbolic loss of their spiritual covering, making their vulnerabilities apparent and forcing them to seek cover with leaves. The garden served as a necessary simulation, training humanity in the mechanics of deception, consequence, and vulnerability before the earthly deployment began. The requirement of isma means a prophet cannot commit a sin or act in malice against divine law. To maintain this doctrine, Adam's action is classified as Tark al-Awla, or leaving the better option. This diagram illustrates the logic. A prophet may face two valid paths. Path A is permissible and carries no sin, while Path B represents the optimal, most prioritized choice. Adam's choice was a lapse in prioritization. By taking the permissible path instead of the optimal one, he bypassed a higher spiritual reward without falling into disbelief or rebellion. The Quran references this in Surah Taha, stating that Adam forgot the covenant. He experienced a lapse in memory and resolve, rather than a deliberate intent to disobey. The framework of Tark al-Awla preserves prophetic infallibility while providing the exact mechanical error required to transition the mission to Earth. Since the error was a lapse in priority rather than a sin, the divine response focused on educational accommodation rather than a generational curse. Allah prompted Adam with a question, "Did I not forbid you from that tree?" initiating a process of learning. Adam immediately turned toward tawbah, or repentance, seeking to restore his proximity to the divine. Verse 37 of Surah al-Baqarah identifies the mechanism for this successful return. Adam received specific Kalimat, or words, which Allah accepted as means of forgiveness. Shia exegesis, including Tafsir al-Askari, identifies these words as the names of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hasan, and Husayn. This validated the protocol of tawassul, or intercession. Allah established that these purified souls would serve as the bridge between humanity and divine mercy. The garden simulation successfully programmed the protocols of intercession into the human operating system before the earthly mission commenced. With the repentance accepted, the command for hubut, the descent, initiated the physical transition to the earthly settlement. Adam landed on an isolated mountain peak in Sarandib, modern Sri Lanka, where he spent years in solitude and supplication. Geographic data from Shia traditions show that this descent involved vast distances, distributing the primary actors across the globe. Eve descended in Jeddah, in the Hijaz of Arabia. A massive geographic barrier stood between them, forcing a physical search for reunion. The adversaries were placed in separate zones, Iblis in Abla, near Iraq, and the serpent in Isfahan, Persia. For over a century, Adam wandered the earth, enduring the physical struggle of a global search for his companion. This scattered deployment induced a state of struggle, requiring humanity to actively seek both community and divine guidance. A divine command eventually ended the separation. Adam was instructed to perform the first Hajj, a journey on foot from India to Mecca. This journey culminated at a specific coordinate on the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah. On this day, Adam and Eve finally converged. The name of this location, Arafat, means to know or to recognize. It marks the moment they recognized one another and the extent of God's mercy. Upon their reunion, Adam adopted a specific posture of realization, raising his hands in supplication. His prayer of gratitude at Arafat used the same intercession as his initial repentance, calling again upon the al-Bayt. The central ritual of Hajj reenacts this original victory, showing that physical separation is overcome through divine intercession. The Shia theological framework defines this sequence as an engineered transition to vicegerency rather than a fall from grace. The requirement of isma and the mechanism of Tark al-Awla dictate this precise chain of events as a preparation for the earthly mission. These origins establish the Kaaba as the focal point of the human mission, an earthly anchor for the divine plan announced before the creation of man. Earth is a purpose-built arena where human unity and salvation are achieved through the protocols of repentance and intercession that Adam learned in the garden.